Amazing secret revealed: how a cleaning lady's hidden notes transformed a millionaire's life. Sarah rolled out of bed, the faint glow of dawn painting her small kitchen in shades of orange and yellow. She moved with purpose, a dance of daily motions, pouring cereal, packing lunches, pulling on her worn sneakers. Her children, sweet yet oblivious to the weight of their mother's struggles, still slumbered. She stared at their peaceful faces, glowing with youth, and felt a familiar pang of determination. How could she give them more than this? With each scrubbing stroke at Jack's place, she saw the lavish life they could never have, and resentful thoughts gnawed at her like shadows lurking in the corners. In the opulent mansion, every surface gleamed, but the air was heavy with silence. As she methodically cleaned, her mind drifted to the hope she harbored: become a writer, take her children on adventures, build the life they deserved. Discovering Jack's unfulfilled notes amidst his cluttered studio ignited something deep inside her. The sketches and verses whispered stories of a man who had once bled passion onto canvas, now buried under ambition and expectation. Why had he traded that magic for cold corporate victories? As Sarah read his words filled with longing, she glimpsed a soul, much like hers. It struck her then: ambition could entrap or inspire. But what would happen if he felt her struggles? If he knew there was someone in the world feeling the same breathless pressure to meet expectations? With a whisper of hope lingering in her heart, Sarah penned her own notes, leaving them like breadcrumbs around the mansion, tiny flickers of encouragement. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Doubt anchored her as she worked. What if he didn't care? What if her words fell flat, a hollow echo of desperation? With every note, a desperate hope intertwined with paralyzing fear cemented itself within her chest. When she noticed Jack's newfound energy shifting, questions circled around her mind: was this her creation, or was she merely a fleeting thought in his life? Would he find strength or grow even more distant as she opened up her wounds, inviting him into a world where she felt trapped? As Jack grew intrigued by the notes, a sudden twist yanked at Sarah's heart. He began aligning more with the assistant, the vibrant new presence in his life, blurring the once crystal clear divide between their two worlds. Anxiety coiled tightly in Sarah's gut, mingling with vulnerability. Could their bond withstand this test? Would she lose her chance to remind him of who he once was, just as she fought to remember herself? The fine line between bravery and folly danced on a razor-thin edge. By daring to reach for Jack's creative pulse, she risked everything: not just her love for her children, but the shards of dreams she had managed to preserve in her heart. She could feel it: the walls they built around their lives were quaking, inching toward an unavoidable collapse. Would they find a way to weave their fates together, or would the weight of their separate worlds pull them apart into darkness? The sun had long risen, casting a warm light that crept into Sarah's world, yet the shadows of doubt loomed larger than ever. With each passing day, the weight of her unspoken feelings toward Jack piled higher. The nights were restless, thoughts ricocheting in her mind like wayward arrows longing for direction. She envisioned many outcomes, some promising, others like specters waiting to swallow her spirit. With a mixture of hope and trepidation, she returned to the mansion, determined to keep the flicker of their connection alive. Jack's growing intrigue with her notes inspired her as much as it frightened her. They communicated in silence, vibrant words looping through her mind like a steady refrain, yet she feared the essence of her motivation, the desire for recognition, would shift into something deeper, more vulnerable. She clung to her notion of self, terrified that being seen would expose the raw edges she tried so hard to conceal. Today, amidst the pristine decor and polished walls, she placed a new note on Jack's easel, simple yet poignant. Sometimes the greatest journey lies in rediscovering yourself. It was succinct, a seed planted in his mind that she hoped would grow roots. Her hands trembled as she stepped back, knowing her vulnerability flowed through those 4 brief lines. What if he dismissed it? Would it become yet another trivial hiccup in his life, while she carried the burden of longing alone? Hours passed, and Sarah's heart raced with anticipation. Every brush stroke she made felt like an echo of Jack's growing connection to the assistant. She couldn't ignore the way they laughed together or how they shared knowing glances while she tended to the background. A storm brewed within her, a torrent of emotions demanding to be felt rather than stifled. The very notion of standing on the periphery, observing while the sparks fluttered between them, ignited a fire she had never acknowledged. In a moment of impulsive clarity, she paused her cleaning and decided it was time for confrontation. Perhaps, just perhaps, laying bare her thoughts would illuminate the murky waters they both floated in. What did she truly want from him? Support? Affection? Or something far more terrifying, acceptance of their intertwined fates? She had spent years hiding in the shadows, supporting others' dreams while her own flickered with uncertainty. Taking a deep breath, she aligned her thoughts and approached him as he adjusted a canvas in natural light. Jack? The word came out tentative, a litmus test for courage she wasn't sure she had. He turned, surprise flickering across his features. Sarah. I didn't expect to see you here today. His tone was warm, but she noticed the undertone of distraction. The assistant was never far away, possibly observing. I wanted to talk. About the notes. Her voice quivered slightly, revealing precisely how high the stakes felt. It became apparent that her hesitance to confess echoed the very essence of her self-doubt. But could digging deeper shatter the walls she had built? You've sparked something in me, a desire to reconnect with my past, he admitted, the sincerity in his eyes only igniting her anxiety further. His passion seemed unsteady, drawing him closer to the light but keeping her hidden in shadow. But what about you? What do you want? The weight of unasked questions pressed heavily on her, bursting forth like a dam unable to hold back an impending flood. Could he face the truth that lay beneath their connection, so fragile yet undeniably potent? Just as she braced for an answer, she caught a glimpse of the assistant lingering in the doorway, an unwelcome distraction that sliced through the thickening atmosphere. The moment teetered on a precipice. Would courage prevail, or would the two be swept back into their separate worlds once again? The ache of uncertainty hung palpably in the air, still charged with potential. Would Sarah seize the opportunity to voice the truth, or would she retreat into silence, becoming but a note in someone else's story? The moment hung suspended, and Sarah could almost hear her heart pounding, drowning out the world around her. Jack's brows furrowed slightly as he noticed her struggle, his expression shifting from curiosity to concern. Sarah, are you okay? His voice brought her back to the present, but it felt like someone had doused her with cold water. There it was, an invitation inside his orbit, and all she could do was tread water while the tide pulled her in multiple directions. She looked past him, casting a fleeting glance at the assistant who seemed caught between intrigue and amusement. Familiar jealousy tightened within her chest, gnashing against the wall she'd built. But then, in a wave of clarity that followed the discomfort, she understood that the only force capable of dismantling her insecurities was confrontation both with Jack and herself. I'm trying to understand what this connection really means, Sarah finally said, tugging at the edges of her resolve. I've spent far too long in the background. I support others, but what about me? Jack stepped closer, the gap between them shrinking. His expression softened, as if he were unraveling the intricate threads of her emotional tapestry. What do you want, Sarah? The question brought a fresh wave of realization crashing over her. A desire bubbled to the surface, exposing her longing for not just recognition, but a partnership born from honesty and understanding. I think I want to be seen by you and by myself. His gaze lingered on hers, and she saw recognition flicker there. Did he understand the weight of her words? They were two sides of the same coin, his artistic expressions and her inner turmoil. Yet, within her vulnerability lay a strength she had long buried, and now it felt like the scaffolding supporting new ambitions. The assistant shifted uneasily, but Jack remained fixed on Sarah. You have to understand, he said, his voice low, I've been searching for someone. Are you finding it? She dared to ask, her own pulse quickening. Each word hung in the charged air, reverberating like a heartbeat, an urgent rhythm that pressed for clarity. Connection or competition? Understandably complicated but undeniably essential. I'm beginning to, he replied quietly. It's a vulnerable admission, and acknowledgement rippled through their silence. What lay between them was a fragile understanding, but the option of stepping into that light felt thrilling and terrifying, scintillating like uncharted waters. The assistant, unable to contain her curiosity any longer, cleared her throat. "Jack, we should probably not now," he interrupted firmly, never breaking eye contact with Sarah. It was a moment of reckless abandon, and for the first time, Sarah felt less like a supporting character and more like an equal, one worthy of attention. Yet, that underlying fear nagged at her, the possibility of rejection, the disapproval of the assistant, or the devastating thought that Jack might want someone who fit perfectly into his brilliant world. What if she was just a fleeting muse, a passing note in his life's symphony? In that next heartbeat, she made a choice. This was not merely about Jack and her unexpressed feelings, it was about confronting the fear she had nurtured for far too long, the fear of failure, the fear of being forgotten. "I want to be a part of this journey with you," she declared, her voice steadier now, a testament to her emerging strength. Jack's eyes widened, the tumultuous emotions of uncertainty and desire reflected clearly. "Then let us figure out what that means together," he whispered, an unspoken pact forming in the air around them, weaving courage into their fraying narratives. But even as hope flickered between them, doubt stirred within her. What challenges awaited as they peeled back the layers of their insecurities? Could they truly share the light without the shadows creeping back? The room felt smaller, charged with the essence of possibility but threaded with the intricacies of fate. Sarah hesitated for a moment, wondering if this uncharted territory would reveal their true selves or unravel them entirely, and as the atmosphere thickened with potential, a lingering thought snaked through her mind: would they face the darkness together, or would the light blind them to the inevitable obstacles ahead? The urgency of her own desires pressed all around her, ready to ignite a new beginning, yet the looming specter of conflict held her tightly in its grasp. It was time to confront what was to come, an unforeseen twist in the unfolding story. The next step felt weighty, each moment pregnant with consequence. Would she have the courage to delve even deeper into the heart of their shared journey? As the door clicked softly behind the assistant, the tension shifted in the room, leaving Sarah and Jack suspended in the thick air of their own unspoken truths. Sarah could feel her heartbeat thrumming loudly, matching the rhythm of her racing thoughts. This moment was a turning point. She could feel it in every corner of her being, determining to dismantle the insecurities still clinging to her like a second skin. Sarah lifted her chin slightly, exercising the quiet strength she felt building within her. "Let us start with what we know," she suggested, her voice now solid, no longer laced with hesitation. "What do you mean?" Jack inquired, his brow slightly raised, intrigued yet cautious. She swallowed hard. It was time to reveal not just her desires but the barriers she perceived. "I have spent so much of my life in the background, you know? Always playing it safe, always the sidekick. But what does it take to be a partner?" She took a deep breath, aware of the weight behind each word. "I need to acknowledge that fear because even when I look at you, I still feel it tugging at me." Jack stepped closer, inviting her to push past her walls. "Sarah, I think that fear is what makes us human. We just have to decide how we respond to it." She nodded, absorbing his words but also trying to build her own narrative. "Maybe my fear has transformed into a catalyst. I want to step into the tension I normally shy away from, both with you and in my own life. If we're to move forward, I need to uncover what's been hidden." The vulnerability she offered opened a fresh channel in their dynamic. Jack's gaze intensified, and she could see the gears turning in his mind. "What does that look like for you? What will you do if the truth isn't pretty?" It was a question she hadn't fully considered the potential for ugly realities, and yet it invigorated her resolve. "Facing that truth will require me to develop. I can't just sit here waiting for the next moment to define me. I must create action steps that reflect who I wish to become." Jack's expression shifted, admiration mixed with curiosity. "What steps are you thinking?" The anticipation galvanizing her thoughts laid the groundwork for an action plan. "I want to invest in my own creativity, explore what I can offer outside of supporting others. Maybe that means writing, photographing, even engaging with art more. I need to cultivate my voice." "And how do you want me to be involved in that journey?" he asked, leaning in, his tone earnest. "By being honest with me as I explore. I need you not as a guide but as a collaborator. I want to build something together, not just on your terms but on mine too." The warmth of empowerment surged through her as she spoke, grounding her in a way that felt unfamiliar yet undeniably exciting. For the first time, she could sense the potential of her ambitions blooming, filling the gaps of her previously guarded heart. But doubt crept in again. With ambitions come expectations, and transparency could easily lead to fragility. As silence enveloped them once more, Sarah wrestled with her swirling thoughts. Was she truly ready to expose herself this way? Every fiber of her being wanted to leap forward, yet the anxiety of potential rejection loomed heavily in the backdrop. "Sarah, I can commit to that," Jack broke the silence, his voice steady. "But we have to push each other, stay real. Are you prepared for that?" Taking a moment, she mulled over whether she could endure the challenging conversations and merciless honesty that would characterize their partnership. But the weight of her previous stagnation pressed down on her. She would rather face the unknown than dwell in the shadows. "I am," she replied resolutely. In that moment, Sarah recognized a profound shift within herself, the determination to embrace complexity rather than shy away from it. But a darkness lingered at the edges of her mind. Could she sustain this momentum? Would Jack revel in her growth, or would the ever-narrowing lens of fame and success pull him away? As this internal battle raged, she sensed an undeniable shift. Beneath the surface, an upcoming confrontation with not just the challenges they would face together, but also with the layers of her past that threatened to resurface. Would she possess the strength to confront these looming truths with the same audacity she was beginning to find? The next step in their journey would demand even bolder choices and uncompromising honesty, setting the stage for a test she had yet to fathom. The world felt different the next morning, awakening vibrantly as sunlight poured through the window, casting playful shadows across the room. Sarah sat at her kitchen table, a fresh cup of coffee in hand, contemplating her newfound resolve. She had taken the first little leap, yet the enormity of the jump loomed above her like a storm cloud. She opened her laptop, heart fluttering with both excitement and trepidation as she created a digital folder titled Project Voice. Every corner of her mind nudged her to fill it with ideas, sketches, and buried inspirations. It felt radical, stepping into her creative power. Her breath hitched at a thought: what if she failed to push past her comfortable boundaries? What if her creations felt insignificant compared to Jack's achievements? Shaking off the creeping doubt, she typed the first sentence: "I need to discover who I am beyond just being a support system." The words formed a manifesto of sorts, a declaration of her intent. No longer was she the shadow in Jack's light, she was emerging, ready to illuminate the path for herself. Each keystroke pulled her deeper into her imagination. She considered her passion for photography, often relegated to mere snapshots at social events rather than embracing it as an art form. Why not curate a personal portfolio that spoke louder than just fleeting moments? The thought inspired a flicker of excitement, and she planned a small project, a photo essay that captured moments of genuine emotion, unfiltered and raw, revisiting places that held significance in her past, but new ideas begged for more. She felt a pull toward writing. "Perhaps I can create stories around each photograph, something to connect deeper," she mused, her fingers pausing over the keyboard. Writing had always felt like a mechanism to understand the world. It was time to take back that power. As she crafted her outlines, each idea crystallized her identity further. Yet, threading this personal journey amidst the close relationship she hoped to build with Jack felt daunting. How would he respond to her authenticity when he had been the central figure in their narrative? Would he encourage her newfound voice or feel threatened by it? Anxiety clawed at her insides, but she couldn't abandon her commitment. The clock ticked away as she organized her thoughts. There was comfort in the sails unfurling, but uncertainty flirted at the edges of her mind. Would the rawness of her observations and explorations resonate with others? What if few cared about the truth she endeavored to articulate? Taking a deep breath, she decided to reach out to Jack, to invite him into her thought process. Vulnerability demanded action, and the confidence she had declared needed reinforcement through dialogue. She typed a quick message, asking if he could meet that evening to discuss her newest ideas. Something simple, yet it felt like an exhilarating release. The rest of the day passed quickly, her mind a whirlwind of images and words. Yet, as she prepared for their meeting, she couldn't shake the growing anxiety. The reflection staring back at her in the mirror felt foreign, fierce yet fragile. This was a pivotal moment. She was about to expose herself as a creator who defined her worth beyond her roles. Jack arrived with a bright smile, and as Sarah poured them both a glass of wine, she readied herself for the real test. Listening to him discuss his own projects ignited her passion but also inflamed her insecurities. She had to summon the courage to introduce her ideas, knowing they would fundamentally challenge their dynamic. "Jack," she began, her voice steady, yet internally she quaked. "I'm ready to share something I've been working on. It feels like a step into the unknown." As she unveiled her plans, tension hung heavily in the air. The moment teetered dangerously between opportunity and fear. Could she lay bare her ambitions without losing a piece of herself to her partner's shadow? The decisive shift felt imminent, that moment where individual aspirations collided with shared dreams. Would Jack embrace her transformation, or would it reveal cracks in their relationship? In the silence that followed her reveal, the weight of unspoken words hung in the balance, daring either of them to breach the tension further. The silence between them stretched, an expansive void filled with unvoiced fears and uncertain futures. Sarah's heart raced, declaiming her dreams felt both liberating and terrifying. Jack's gaze, previously bright and engaged, shifted as he processed her words. What she imagined as a blossoming conversation now bore the tension of an unexpected storm. "Wow," he finally murmured, his brow slightly furrowed. "You really want to dive into this?" He paused, his expression a puzzle she couldn't quite decipher. "I mean, it's surprising." Surprising. The word struck her as both praise and caution, a mixed compliment that sent doubt surging through her. Had she miscalculated? Was she not the radiant partner she believed she could become, someone examining deeper themes instead of coasting alongside Jack? The fear of reverting to her previous self, the unremarkable support system, gnawed at her. "Yeah," she admitted, steeling herself against the weight of his reaction. "I don't want to just tag along anymore. My voice matters too, and I think I have something to offer." Each word felt like an anthem, but muted by Jack's hesitance. "I get that. It's just what this mean for us?" His eyes narrowed as he sought clarity. The emphasis on us amplified her anxiety. Did he see her aspiration as a threat to their relationship, a bridge she might cross into unfamiliar territory? "I don't know," Sarah replied, wrestling to maintain her composure. "I'm not trying to distance myself from you. I want to explore who I am. You've always encouraged me to be more, and I'm finally ready to listen." Jack was quiet again, a familiar contemplative silence that often drove her to overanalyze. What could he be thinking? She felt the urge to fidget, but resisted, knowing that the moment required strength. "I love that you want to grow," he finally stated, his voice softer now. "But it feels like you're stepping away from the shared life we've built. I need some assurance that we're still together in this." The tremor in his tone revealed a crack in his confident facade, and there it was, a thin barrier preserving his comfort while threatening to ensnare her growth. Would she reach across that gap, or was it wise to allow space for her own evolution? Anxiety wrapped around her thoughts, every outcome beckoned a sacrifice. "I want to be together." "I really do, Jack," she said, her voice unwavering. "Honestly, this project doesn't change how I feel about us. It encourages me to show you who I can be." For the first time, she noticed a flicker of hesitation on his face, the realization of her independence, the frightening possibility that Sarah could emerge brighter than the shadow he was accustomed to. His requirements for reassurance felt like a tether she yearned to break. She had no intention of drifting away but needed the freedom to find her identity. "Maybe it's a balance we have to find," he suggested, though his tone lacked conviction. "We can both grow." "Right," she replied, her heart heavy and hopeful at the same time. "But can't that be a journey we take together? I want you to know me as I transform, not just as the supportive partner you expect." Uncertainty spread through her chest again, vulnerability was an exploration into the unknown. Jack's reaction could either thrive on the challenge or succumb to fear. As the evening wore on, the conversation shifted back and forth between tension and understanding. They discussed casual dreams and aspirations, yet the foundation of shared goals felt subtly shaken. The weight of unspoken expectations still lingered. Could they navigate who they were becoming without losing what they had? When their conversation ended, Sarah found herself in a place of reflection. The reveal had stirred something deeper. Her ambitions now floated just a heartbeat away from becoming a tangible reality. If she continued to push forward, how would Jack reshape himself to this newfound identity? In that quiet space filled with flickering shadows, she admired her resilience but questioned its implications. As she tucked herself into bed that night, she marveled at the transformative night they had shared, yet unease brewed beneath her resolve. How far was she willing to push against the tides of complacency? With her dreams and fears intertwined, she turned out the light. But could she embrace the seismic shift without losing the depth of their connection? The next day, fresh anxiety greeted her as she opened her laptop. A new proposal had emerged in her mind, but was Jack ready for it? The weight of potential rapidly bore down on her. The need to confront their next challenge felt imminent, and as she stared at the empty white space where her ambition demanded to be recorded, clarity emerged. Perhaps it was time to push limits further than she ever had before. But what had she yet to discover about herself and Jack through this leap? The moment she decided to venture deeper, her phone buzzed, and she froze, recognizing the message on the screen: "We need to talk." The bright morning light streamed into Sarah's small home office, yet its warmth felt more like a spotlight, illuminating the anxiety swirling within her. She settled into her chair, the laptop casting a ghostly glow as she combed through her thoughts, teetering on the edge of confrontation with anticipation and dread. The weight of Jack's message pressed heavily on her chest, a summons filled with implications she couldn't ignore. What could he possibly want to address? The very foundation of their relationship felt as though it hung in the balance. She sighed, fingers poised over the keyboard, yet unable to type. The proposal that had formed so clearly in her mind moments before now felt like a hazy mirage, shifting just beyond her grasp. This was it, the defining moment. Would she retreat into the comfort of uncertainty or push forward, embracing her emerging identity? Thoughts surged as she recalled the earlier night's conversation. Jack's reservations were valid, they had been a team for so long, his steady presence a calming influence while she wrestled with her own ambitions. But who was she if she kept stifling her own potential? Her heart raced with determination as she reminded herself that growth seldom came from comfort. Perhaps this conversation could mark a pivotal shift not just for her but for both of them. With a deep breath, Sarah made a mental checklist: articulate her ambitions clearly, reassure Jack of their bond, and confront the emotional barriers tethering them. And yet, beneath that composed surface, she questioned the very essence of her aspirations. Were they truly hers, or were they an extension of who Jack envisioned her to be? The battle of identity lurked beneath the surface, gnashing its teeth. Suddenly, her phone buzzed again. A reminder of their meeting loomed ever closer. Time was slipping through her fingers, she had to act. She took a moment to center herself, drawing upon the conviction that had sparked her dreams. Clarity surged as she began drafting bullet points in a notebook: the importance of her creative pursuits, the impact of her voice on their relationship, and how a partnership thrives on mutual growth. With every word she wrote down, Sarah felt a revitalizing sense of agency take hold. This wasn't just about her dreams, it was about shaping a shared future that honored their evolving selves. She looked at the clock. An hour remained until Jack arrived. She leaped from her chair, pacing as thoughts blurred together, intermingled with fears. Am I strong enough to face this? She needed to communicate her resolve in a way that didn't alienate Jack. She envisioned him listening, perhaps fraught with his own insecurities, but also potentially receptive to change. Navigating through his expectations would be a challenge, yet in that moment, Sarah swore she could feel an inner empowerment blossoming. She would not cower. She would confront her past self, face the reflection staring back from the mirror, and demand her own version of courage. As the clock ticked down, excitement mixed with apprehension. Jack would walk through that door any moment, unaware of the transformative layer of her intentions that awaited him. The implications of her choices and how they would forever reshape their relationship loomed dauntingly ahead, and then came the knock that pierced through her thoughts like a sharp arrow, a reminder that the moment had finally come. Sarah steadied her breath and opened the door, ready to face whatever revelations lay ahead. In that charged exchange, she sensed a shift in the atmosphere, a stirring current that could either weave their lives tighter or unravel every expectation. "Hi," Jack said, his voice a blend of apprehensive warmth and hesitant caution. "Hey," she replied, her voice firm yet gentle. "I was hoping we could talk about us." As they settled into the familiar comfort of their living area, she could feel the weight of unspoken questions lingering in the air between them. Would they navigate through the emotional thickets hand in hand, or was the path ahead destined to lead to unknown separations? "What do you want to say?" Jack prompted, a subtle edge of uncertainty in his tone, urging her to take the plunge. "I've been thinking about our conversation, but before she could get another sentence out, Jack interrupted, a flicker of frustration edging into his tone. "Sarah, I just need to understand." The moment crystallized, and Sarah finally realized that, despite her fear, this was no longer just about her dreams. It was about confronting the very core of their connection and understanding who they were becoming together. With resolve sparking through her veins, she leaned forward. "Then let us understand each other." What would unfold next felt like a breath held far too long. The risk of losing everything paled beside the exhilarating prospect of redefining their future. And with those words hanging in the air, a new paradigm began to take shape around them. The air hung heavy between them, a lingering tension ripe with unspoken truths. Sarah observed Jack as he processed her words, the sharp lines of his jaw tightening ever so slightly, revealing his unease. His ambivalence mirrored her own fears of vulnerability. Would he truly listen to what she had to say, or would he retreat into old patterns of defense, rendering this conversation impotent? "Let us just be honest," she began, her voice stronger than she felt. She clenched her hands, feeling the warmth of her pulse as it quickened. "I've been feeling stifled. I have dreams, Jack. Dreams that I believe could redefine not just my path but ours." Her heart raced as she laid her intentions bare, each word peeling a layer of the protective armor she had worn for too long. Jack's expression shifted, caught somewhere between curiosity and discomfort. "What do you mean?" His brows knitted together, signaling the flickering hope that he might be open to understanding. "I thought we were doing well as we are. You are my partner, Jack, and I want us to thrive together, but it feels like my creativity is getting lost in the shadows of our routine," she responded, struggling against the urge to retreat from emotional intimacy. "I want us to explore those dreams together." He searched her eyes, and for a moment, silence enveloped the room, deepening the stakes. Sarah's pulse echoed in her ears as she held her breath, waiting for a response. Jack finally exhaled, his shoulders relaxing slightly. "But aren't these changes risky? You've been so focused on our stability, on what we've built together." "Yes," she admitted, the truth of their shared history stinging sharply in her throat. "But maintaining that stability has come at the cost of my own happiness. I need to be honest with you and myself about who I am and what I want." Jack's brows furrowed deeper, uncertainty battling concern. "What if this disrupts everything? I don't want to lose you." His vulnerability resonated with her, reminding her that they were both navigating a treacherous sea of fears and loves. "There's strength in change, Jack. I believe we can redefine what our relationship looks like without losing each other," she replied, sensing the mantle of their potential shadowing over her. "I want us to actively support one another, to spark our individual fires, not smother them." For the first time, Jack smiled faintly, hinting at the possibility that he was willing to consider her perspective. "How do you see that working? I need to know this isn't just a fleeting thought." This ignited a spark in her. "Let us leave behind our preconceived notions. Instead of assuming our future, let us make space to discuss our desires, our fears, our aspirations together. We could even take turns doing something new each month. It's about exploration." His face softened as he mulled her words over. "I've always supported your ambitions, the gallery idea, your writing, but I didn't think you'd want to pursue them while we were balanced?" She interrupted gently. "Is it balance if one of us bears the weight alone? I don't want to feel like I'm in a box anymore. We have to challenge ourselves, Jack, and be adventurous together." He took a moment to process this. She could see the moment when the flicker of understanding ignited, and uncertainty was paired with openness. "Just promise me that we'll talk through whatever happens, no matter how scary it feels." "I promise," she replied, relief flooding her as a sense of acceptance settled in the void of apprehension. "For what it's worth, I appreciate us trying to navigate it together." Just then, Sarah was struck by the realization that this conversation marked the beginning of a transformation not just for her but for both of them. Could they truly embrace this vulnerable path as partners? The complexities of redefining their dreams lingered like an unturned page, but as Jack reached for her hand, the brief interlude of connection shattered when suddenly, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from her former boss, a gallery owner wanting to discuss an unresolved project. The familiar anxiety flooded back, a reminder that the world she was stepping into was not only daunting but also brimming with possibilities waiting to be seized. "Let us embrace this, Jack," she said, pulling her focus back to him, determined to keep the momentum alive. The flickering uncertainty remained, but so did a burgeoning sense of empowerment. What did she want to do next? As they sat there, with tentative hope looming, Sarah realized the daunting task ahead wasn't just about her aspirations, but about renegotiating their entire relationship dynamic, and this conversation was just the foothold of what was still to come. A new world awaited outside those walls, and with each pulse of advancement, her heart beat quicker, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. But little did she know, an unexpected twist was waiting right around the corner. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that confronting her past might soon lead her into a challenge that threatened everything she held dear. As the evening dimmed and the walls of the apartment cast long shadows, Sarah's mind buzzed with the weight of opportunity and past regrets. The glow of her phone screen illuminated Jack's pensive face as they shared that fragile moment of connection. She squeezed his hand, grounding herself in the present but feeling the pull of what lay beyond, an unresolved project with the gallery that could be her lifeline. "Should I respond?" Sarah asked, her voice laced with a mix of excitement and fear. Each tick of the clock echoed her internal conflict, the tug-of-war between safety and ambition. Jack nodded, a hesitant smile playing on his lips. "You're the artist. If this is something you want to explore, you should go for it." His support revitalized her. In that instant, she didn't just see a partner, she glimpsed a collaborator. It sparked something primal deep within her, the drive to reclaim her identity, to reforge her dreams into reality. She realized that this moment was more than a decision about a project. It was a step toward unearthing the depths of her capabilities, a leap into the unknown she had just begun to accept. With a steadying breath, she began typing. The words flowed like water released from a dam. She expressed her excitement about the project, her ideas, and how she envisioned it unfolding. But just before hitting send, a stirring of doubt crept in. What if they expected her to deliver something she wasn't ready for? Breath hitching at the urgency of that thought, Sarah hesitated. This was hers to own, but with ownership came the risk of failure. Closing her eyes, she imagined herself that evening in the gallery, surrounded by the vibrant energy of art. She could almost hear the hum of conversation, the appreciative murmurs of recognition. Empowered, she hit send. "Done," she announced, her voice steady though her heart raced with uncertainty. Jack leaned back, a glimmer of pride in his eyes. "See? You're already taking the steps. Now I just need to embrace what comes next." His expression was serious. "Just remember, you've got people supporting you." But Sarah wasn't just one of those people. She was evolving, her own anchor in a sea of vulnerability. She began to feel that each challenge she faced helped chip away the older version of herself, revealing a new form more resilient than before. The very act of reaching out, of letting go of her past fears, initiated a shift in her mindset. After a few moments of reflection, her phone buzzed again, this time an immediate response from the gallery owner, invigorating her with a rush of adrenaline. Ideas began swirling in her mind as she read the message: meticulous interpretations, thematic explorations, and alignment of her creative identity with their vision. Each word filled her with a sense of purpose, a whisper of a call she could no longer resist. But amid the newly sparked excitement, an unsettling thought lurked: what did it mean for her and Jack? As she floated on possibilities, she keenly felt the weight of their conversation slipping into the recesses of her mind. How would this newfound trajectory impact their relationship dynamic? "Jack," she said, suddenly aware of the distance that had just formed between them, "what if I need to prioritize different activities or even travel for this? Will we be okay?" His brows knitted, the concern shadowing his earlier pride. "If you're chasing your dreams, then yes, but it might challenge us more than we thought." Her heart sank at the prospect of potential distance, not just in physical space but in emotional connection as well. They had just begun to explore this new chapter, and now she was uneasy about the ramifications. "Everything is changing," she murmured, weaving vulnerability into her tone. "I'm scared of losing us." Jack inhaled deeply, his gaze steady. "This is growth, Sarah. We'll navigate the changes together. We can't let fear control us. Just promise me that when you figure it out, you'll come back to us. A pact in the making. For a fleeting moment, she felt invigorated, the fire stoked much harder than the fear. But a shadow of discomfort lingered. Was it possible to balance their evolving identities without losing what they currently cherished? As they sat in a reverie of emotions, Sarah felt both empowered and anxious. Growth was on the horizon, yet it whispered secrets of disruption. What would happen when she needed to meld her past with her aspirations? Would they rise up together or fracture under the burden of change as her ambitions beckoned? That night, while familiar stars blinked outside, Sarah felt an urgency settling deep within her, a horizon of possibilities beckoning. The path before her was uncharted, but with every moment away from the conversation they had just had, she realized there was potency in the unease. Perhaps it was a prelude to transformational choices that stood just ahead. However, she couldn't shake the feeling that if she was to rise in her newfound aspirations, the unfolding tension could lead her to a point of no return. Would she find the courage to face the potential fallout of her ambitions? What awaited her next? Was another hidden piece of her past? Inevitably, the threads of ambition intertwined with looming shadows. A challenge awaited, and she sensed that unraveling it might just demand more than she had anticipated. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of transformation for Sarah. As she dove deeper into her project, the gallery began marking the dawning of her creative journey. She immersed herself in her photo essays, stories, and collaborative brainstorming sessions with Jack. Together, they sparked discussions that unveiled deeper layers of their individual ambitions and how they intertwined. Jack was receptive, acknowledging Sarah's need for exploration while nurturing his own passion for art. Slowly, their bond evolved, shaped by a mutual understanding that honor could coexist with personal pursuits. Sarah stood at the precipice of her dreams, feeling invigorated by the potential of redefining her identity. She embraced every failed snap, every misplaced word, and each encouraging note Jack slipped her way. Yet, just as she reveled in the thrill of her journey, shadows from the past threatened to resurface. Unresolved emotions and lingering effects of societal expectations cast doubt upon her. A moment came when her focus faltered during their discussions, and the unease seeped into their interactions. "Jack, what if my growth pulls us apart?" she eventually voiced, feeling vulnerable as the words spilled out. His gaze remained steady, but the underlying challenge could still be felt like tangible electricity between them. "It's okay to feel that, Sarah. But don't let fear dictate what we built together," he replied, validating her internal conflict while also encouraging her to push through the discomfort. Reassured but still wrestling with trepidation, Sarah decided to face her fears head-on. She wrote a letter that expressed her thoughts, acknowledging the weight of change, both welcome and unwelcome. She poured her heart into articulating how deeply she cherished their connection and how its evolution didn't necessitate a compromise. The night she chose to share the letter, Jack read it with an intent focus that left her breathless. The air crackled with anticipation, and each carefully chosen word resonated between them. "When it feels like the ground is shifting beneath us," he began, placing the letter down, "we must remember that we built a foundation of trust and respect. Change can amplify our bond if we allow it." Finally, Sarah felt a sense of release. The fear of emerging as an independent creator dissipated. Instead, she recognized herself as the central figure of her own story, an artist, a mother, and an equal partner. Months of perseverance culminated in a gallery exhibition that celebrated her work. Each piece on display told her story, threading together photographs and narratives that captured the essence of her journey, from working as a cleaning lady to establishing her creative voice. Jack stood beside her, pride radiating from his features as he engaged with the attendees, deftly discussing her artistic interpretations while she basked in the recognition she had longed for. That evening was a pinnacle of achievement, transforming uncertainty into confidence. Sarah conquered not only the gallery but herself, a dawn breaking upon the horizon, bringing with it the promise of self-acceptance and recognition. She had become the architect of her future, no longer merely a supporting character in Jack's narrative, but the defining force of her own destiny. As she gazed around the room, a warm oasis filled with art lovers, friends, and family, she marveled at the profound shift within herself. The dreams she once thought to be unattainable goals stood vivid and concrete before her. The fears that had threatened to constrict her vision had, instead, seeded growth, the embodiment of courage now rippling through her veins. Jack looked at her, a knowing smile exchanged between two souls that had journeyed through vulnerability and emerged stronger. In that unspoken moment of recognition, both understood they were intertwined not by obligation but by choice, their relationship having roared to life with the fervor of shared aspirations. Sarah had not just transformed her narrative, she had thrived, carrying the heart of her true self into each moment, grounded in the belief that belonging didn't mean losing ownership over her existence. This realization would ripple outward, into every facet of her life, as she boldly faced her next chapter. Reflecting on her journey, it was crystal clear, this was only the beginning, and she relished in the empowering knowledge that life awaited her, ripe with endless possibilities. Now is the time for you to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Seriously, it makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your voice matters. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.